we're back into a bowl practice routine. We've worked out a few days, and the players were off yesterday, and then back at it today and tomorrow. Off a day, practice 2 days, and then get back together after the holiday in Dallas. And everything's going really well. Our players are excited about it, competing, and so it's a really busy time of the year for us with recruiting for coaches, but it's a great time of the year for the players. School's out, all football, and a chance for them to enjoy being around each other for a few more weeks. So looking forward to the next few days of preparation and getting together in Dallas. Missouri is a good football team. You guys know that. Obviously, as many games as they've won and as highly as they're ranked, you don't get to that point without being a really good football team. And it's not any mystery. You guys see as much of them as we do. They can throw it around. They can run it. Got tall receivers. Their schemes are very similar to what they've done in the past. Defensively, they've got two to three really good pass rushers, which is common to what they've always had in the past. They've always had guys up front that cause issues for offenses. In the secondary, very similar to what we've seen when they were in our league a few years ago. Guys that will come up and tackle and make plays. So it should be a great game. I know that we're looking forward to it. I'm sure Missouri feels the same way. And the hospitality information that we're getting from the Cotton Bowl is tremendous, like always. And so everybody's excited about getting to Dallas.
Mike, is it easy for you to think of Missouri as an SEC team? Or do you sometimes when you think Missouri, you think they're still with us, and then you have to sort of snap back to
I don't know if I'm into them being an SEC team yet or not. I kind of feel like when people bring up A&M and Missouri, and the few times during the year when I would scan across it on the television, still kind of think to stop and watch a little bit because you may still play them. It worked out that way with Missouri in the bowl, but it took me a while to get out of the Big 8 into the Big 12. So teams that have been in our conference for a long time, I still catch myself watching Colorado. But obviously they're in the SEC now, and it's changed, but I don't really see it as different. It's only been 2 seasons. Is that correct?
A&M had great success last year, their first year. Missouri's had great success here, year 2. What does that say about the Big 12, the 2 teams that weren't at the top have gone to the SEC and done really well?
I think that the success they had early in the league surprised most people across the country. The talk then was Missouri and A&M were getting into a league that they weren't prepared for, in some people's opinion. We've always had a lot of respect for Missouri, and when we started playing A&M over the last 10 years or so, A&M is in a geographic location allows them to have really good football players, and so you're playing against talented football teams. And it's interesting that they would make the change in going into the SEC, and both teams had tremendous success up front. So it would certainly make us feel pretty good about ourselves being in the Big 12.
Mike, has there been something on the defensive side of Missouri's football team that's really got your attention?
Well, they have really good pass rushers. And, I mentioned earlier is they're real similar to the past in their style of play. They have 37 players from the state of Texas. We have 77 players from the state of Texas. And it's interesting that when I see the players make plays, I start to look up where they're from, like I do with most teams we play in this league, in order to try to get a feel for what's best for us in recruiting. And if you asked people across the country, I don't know that they would say that a team from Missouri is playing the SEC has 37 players from the state of Texas. I think that number's accurate. When I counted it, I could have been off a few. But and they've done a really good job of recruiting, in my opinion. They're finding players that, in somebody's opinion, may have not come out as a 5-star guy. And they have success with them in their program, and they develop, and they make plays. So that's where they're at on defense, just what they've done in the years when we were playing them. And they have players that show up and make a lot of plays and end up getting picked in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round of the draft, and you start to look where they come from, and they came from the same areas we were recruiting. And so it's interesting. And it's the same thing on offense. Now, they've picked up some the receiver they got that's really, I think he was a 5-star guy, but they've also picked up some other players that are very similar to what they've used in the past. So they do a good job, in my opinion, of locating players that they can develop that other teams may not think are ready to play at our level.
I think you were gone when OSU went into the first year of the Big 12. I think that was your first year gone.
I was at Baylor.
Yeah. OSU's recruiting obviously is picked up with the formation of the Big 12. Recruiting in Texas. You guys recruiting in Texas better in the Big 12 than you did in the Big 8. Mm-hmm. Do you expect Missouri to be able to continue to recruit well in Texas when they're in the SEC? They've gone from having one school in Texas in their league. I mean, they went from 4 to 1. It seems like it'd be a tougher sell for Texans now.
Should be. Again, it's hard to speak for what their strategy is in recruiting. For us, we felt like that the Big 12 would be an advantage because a number of teams that are in the state of Texas, and we go to the state of Texas. And then, of course, we have 2 teams in Oklahoma, and then with Kansas being close. So for us, the team that's the furthest away is Iowa State, which we don't go that far north in most cases. So we felt like it was an advantage to be in a league where there was other teams that we were going to play. Again, it's hard for me to say what their plan would be. 37's the number now. I guess you would say 4 years from now, we'll see what their number is, and then see how it, a trial study for lack of a better term. We'll see where they're at numbers wise. And they may be going the other direction. They may be going down more to the south and the east recruiting. But we see them in Texas all the time.
That 08 game in Columbia, 28-23, change any way you were viewed or the program was viewed? Because you don't put labels on yourself. You're the guy who couldn't win a road game until you went out there and beat them when they were ranked third.
I think it was a big win for our program. That you were on, I think it was the 7 o'clock game, the national TV, and a big audience, and they were really good. I remember going into that game, I don't think they had a 3-and-out all year. It was like the 5th or 6th or 7th. I don't know what anybody's record was going into that game, but it seemed to be the middle of the year. And they had the quarterback from down here in Texas that made all the plays, Chase Daniel. And on the first series, we had him in 3rd and 15 or 3rd and 13, and they converted. They threw the ball to that big tight end. He ran a 7-cut, and I thought, great. And then I think we stopped him maybe 3 or 4 3rd-and-outs in that game, which was the first time they had a 3-and-out. And so it was a really big win for us on a big stage that made our players or gave them some evidence that, hey, we can do this, I think, because you have to win one to make people think you can do it, to make themselves believe, and I think that was a big game for our university and for our program.
You've been involved in about 15 of these games as a player or a coach. Is that the one that stands out to you above all the others, or not so much?
15
OSU Missouri games probably, or more. I don't have a count.
Well, that was a big game for us. We played them here. I think it was the last year. No, because we went back up there the last year. We had a big game with them here that we won. They were pretty good then, or people thought they were pretty good, and it was pretty evenly matched. But we've had some good battles with them. Missouri is a team that over a 20, 25-year period has been better in football than what people think across the country, in my opinion. And we've always had a lot of respect for him, and certainly Coach has been there, 14, 15 years? How long has he been there? He's been there quite a while now. So he's established, and he's done a great job with them during that time.
2 years ago, Mike, the national sell was that the difference between the SEC and the Big 12 was they played defense. Now they play an SEC championship game and they score a combined 100 points. Mm-hmm. Were we misled?
I mean, I don't want to rehash everything, but one thing I mentioned to you was the scores are increased by 2 things, in my opinion: teams that don't huddle up, and teams that have NFL-type quarterbacks. And you can just go back and look at the history in this league. And this year, I don't have the number, but when I did have time to watch SEC games, their scores were higher than what I ever remembered them being. And I haven't looked at draft list, but the guy at Georgia, the guy at LSU, I'll miss some of them, I don't know. But they had quarterbacks that some people think are going to be NFL players. And you're seeing more offenses in that league not huddle up. Johnny Manziel, obviously. And so because of that, there's more plays, which create more points. The statistic that defenses need to be referenced to is average scoring allowed per possession. That's a more fair evaluation of a defense in today's time than what it used to be 10 years ago. The numbers are still put out there. They're comparing everybody in the country, and in this league, when we had a number of NFL quarterbacks, based on the traditional statistic, which to me, a defense has to go out so many times, and if they go out 17 times during a game, they're going to give up more points than if they go out 12. And if you do that over a 12 season, let's just say 10 of those games, that's 50 more possessions they have to defend than what they did 10 years ago. So the numbers are going to be inflated. That's a statistic that should matter. What's the average points that they're giving up based on the possessions that they're defending?
Bowl matchups are usually against teams you hardly ever see, Stanford, Oregon, Purdue. Is it more comforting knowing that you're going against a team that you've seen quite often not too long ago?
Oh, I don't really know that factors in. This is a really good football team, and again, we're playing in a location that benefits us. They're as familiar with us as we are with them. There's a number of guys, Josh Henson's on their staff, and Coach Pinkel's competed against Oklahoma State. Cooper Bassett's up there, Jason Ray's here. So there's a number of people that are familiar with the teams and the system. So I just think it's a great matchup. I don't know that it is an advantage either way.
You mentioned their pass rush. Michael Sam, their end All-American. Is he as good as anybody that you've seen so far?
I think so. 56 and 52 are both, they really get up the field. They've got big guys inside, and it's similar to what they had in the past that are 6'2" or under, and they're heavy, big, thick guys and push up the field, and then they have those two fast guys that rush up on the edge. And they're good players. They've made and been very successful with that scheme, which is what they've done for a number of years.
How will you counter that?
Well, you have to be balanced on offense. It doesn't really change week to week for us on offense. They're going to try to take away what we do best, and then it should be important for us to take away what they do best. In most cases, that's coaching, give or take a little bit here and there, but for the most part, that's what we try to do. I'm guessing that most teams will try to accomplish the same goal.
Mike, obviously a disappointing loss last time you were out here. How have you seen, it's been 2 weeks or so, how have you seen your guys respond, and you feel like they've been able to put it past them, or is there still some lingering?
They were better on Tuesday. For 4 or 5 days, they were in the jar, and then the first practice we had was real average, and we made them aware of it. But then they've kind of regrouped. We've had our banquet, and when things don't go as you want them to, and not only in football but anything we do in life, time is the best healing process available, and so time has helped them. They're very disappointed that they didn't win the game, and it showed. But from the practice we had on Tuesday and seeing the guys around, and haven't seen them yet today, they'll show up here, it's been much better, and I think they understand that they're getting ready to play a really good football team, that if they don't prepare well in practice and focus, that they don't have the best opportunity to win. And we talk all the time about preparation, and so I feel like that they've made that transition over the last couple days.
This senior class has obviously been really successful here in Stillwater. Can you talk about their legacy a little bit and how much you'd like to send them off with a victory here?
Well, we want to win every game we play because the players compete and work hard just like Missouri's players. You like to see them to win because they put so much time and effort into it. This class has been tremendous for a lot of reasons. One, they won 50 games. They've had tremendous success on the field, but this season has been unique in that they rallied as a group. After the game at West Virginia, where we didn't play as well as we would have wanted to, they came together as a group of seniors and committee members, the leaders of the team, and made a decision to rally, keep their heads up, come together as a group, find a way to get better. And it's an example of what I try to mention in here is the success on each year is based on the players. You have to have those leaders that develop in your program, and that's our responsibility as coaches to develop leaders, because in the market and in the day that we're in, time and age now with college athletics, coaches can't really control the attitude of teams to a certain extent. They have to want to do it for themselves when they're not in our building, when they're in the apartments or they're hanging out, whatever it is that college players do. And so this group has really been impressive over the last few years, and especially this year, in the fact that Parker Graham said it. I've heard where some of our other players have said it that have has spoken with you guys, is that we don't have a couple first-round picks and a third and a fourth and a fifth-round pick on this team, I'm guessing. And so we've rallied as a group, and they've come together, and they've worked hard, and they've benefited from spending that time together. And so that's what we remember most about this team.
How impressed are you of Kai Staley, who went through so much and persevered and finished up?
It's interesting. They have a player on their team that's in a similar situation. They have a running back that had a very traumatic injury, just like Kai. And I don't know the young man, but I'm guessing that he is like Kai, that just refused to listen to people telling him that he couldn't play, including myself to a certain extent, and has come back and been a great leader for us. He falls in the category of what I just mentioned. He's one of those players, and he's terrific in the locker room and in the weight room, and you have to have guys like that in order for a team to have success. It's like basketball. You can't have 5 Parade All-Americans trying to score 25 points. Somebody's got to set a screen and pick and dive for a loose ball. And there's a role for everybody on our team, and Kai certainly has his role and has benefited us greatly over the last 4 or 5 weeks since he's been healthy in our running game.
Did you ever see him waver at all during the process?
Oh, I think he had a tough year or 18 months after that injury. When you're as active as athletes are, and you're somewhat immobile and can't put weight on it, and it's inflamed and you're sore, and they go through times where it's not easy for them. It's really difficult for them because somebody's taken away what they love to do, which is to play the game. Can't play anymore. But he rallied and came back. I thought our medical staff did a terrific job with him, not only physically but mentally, working with him. And it just worked out well that he was able to come back and compete.
Mike, you're 5-2 in bowl games. I know you self-evaluate lots of things you do around here. Have you looked at why you think you've been successful in bowl games?
Oh, I like our practice plan. I like our approach. I think it gives us the best chance for success. I think bowl games are about a mental approach for a player. First off, they have to want to be in the game, and it has to be important to them. I've seen it where teams didn't play near as good as they should have because at some point it wasn't important to them. It seems sad, but I've seen that happen. Other than that, I wouldn't be able to give you another reason.
When you say you like your practice plan and your approach, how would you describe those
We
things?
give our players a considerable time off, and then we're 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off, and we don't ever practice more than 2 days in a row, and we never go pads more than 1 day in a row. And our practices are cut back considerably. Not that that's the answer, but we feel like it rehabilitates our players mentally after being out here for 5 months. And that's just our opinion.
Mike, talking about that plan, I know the main focus is preparation for the game itself, but you do get to float some of the younger guys that redshirted back to their position coaches for drills. They get to kind of reacquaint themselves with them. Talk about that part of it, the excitement of seeing some of those young players that have been on scout team all year, and combine it with junior college signing day, because you signed 2 kids yesterday that you'll have in the spring.
During bowl practice, we take, give or take, 10 to 15 minutes spread throughout our periods that we work with our young players who have redshirted, or players that are in a redshirt freshman year that we expect to contribute next year in the first game. It's fun to watch them because they get to play when it counts, not just as a demonstration squad. And we've been very fortunate this year. Our guys have done a great job with that. Our walk-ons and our redshirt players have been really good each week. And then we were fortunate enough to sign Devontae and Tyreek. Devontae being a linebacker from Iowa, and Tyreek a skill player, an offensive skill player from out in Garden City. Both of them we're expecting to play in the first game next year. When we sign a 2-year player, we hope that they can play in the first game the next year. Or really, it doesn't make much sense to sign a player. You should just go get a high school player. So we think that they'll be able to contribute in our first game next year.
Have any of those younger guys stood out to you so far in this week or so that you've had?
We've had a number of guys. I'll miss some names, but we've had some young linemen on both sides of the ball. Crabtree's done a nice job. Billy Lavini's done a nice job. Those corners that we've got, Curry and Morrow and Cooper Bassett's brother from Tuttle, Dawson. Yeah, we've had a number of guys that have stood out and make plays. Those guys have to have a great off season in January and February, winter conditioning, to show up so they can be healthy and practice in the spring, and because they'll have to play in the first game.
All the bowl experiences you guys take for granted, all the extra stuff. Tyler Patman may be like a kid in the candy store when he gets down there.
He is. We talked about that we won at Iowa State, and there wasn't any mention of it, but he had tweeted after the game. And that's as soon as they can tweet, because our players aren't allowed to tweet on Friday afternoon until the game's over. And I don't know if they all follow that, but for the most part, I think they do a good job. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because as soon as it was over, I was told, and I didn't see it because I don't get them, and I don't know how to get them, but they said that he said bowl eligible for the first time. He had a tweet. You guys probably saw it. I know you probably track him, and I mentioned that to the team, that how excited and thankful he was to be in a bowl. And he's been great for us. We've used him as a rotating corner. He's been in nickel packages. There's times when we played Baylor and Gilbert was hurt, we used him some as a safety. And he's been a huge contributor to the success of our team this season.
Can you comment on Chelf and just the leadership he's shown and how he's come through what must have been a difficult season for him?
Well, he's done very well. You guys know, since we've put him in, the first game or two was very average at several things. Other than running, he was a very effective runner for us. And for the most part, his passing got better as the season went on. And he's been a good manager of the game for us. And certainly went on a however many game streak there, 7 games or however many we won in a row there, with him at the quarterback spot. And there were a few games where offense didn't look very good, but he was effective enough for us to manage defensively and in the kicking game to win. And as a quarterback and a coaching staff, sometimes that's what you have to do in order to be successful. And I think he's done a really good job of that. And what he's gone through here, for whatever reason, is going to help him from this point forward. He's persevered, and it's a good example for our players. We get young guys that come in our program, and they think all of a sudden they're supposed to start because that's what they've been told. People outside tell them that, recruiting services, and they expect it. And when they get here, it's not as fun as they thought it was because you're not playing early. And we can use players like him as an example that you got to stay with it and keep working, because we all know that it takes a little time to get on the field early in your career.
What was your relationship with Mac Brown like? What's that?
We've always had a really good relationship, and he's one of the really good guys in our profession. And, I've told him several times over the last few years I have a lot of respect for the way he's handled what, in my opinion, would not always be the easiest situation. Very professional, and there's people when you go to conference meetings and different areas where, as head coaches, we're all together as a group. There's certain guys you sit with and feel comfortable, just like you guys when you go to events that y'all are at. And there's some people you're good with, but you're just not as comfortable sitting and visiting with them. And Mac and I have always had that relationship, and he's got great people skills. And I think a lot of us in our profession can learn from him and the way he's handled his business, not only at Texas, but, I was coaching against him when he was at North Carolina. And so whatever he chooses to do, whatever direction he goes, he'll do very well for those reasons, above and beyond everything that he's accomplished as a coach.
Who do you not like to sit with?
It's interesting, Barry, you asked that, and our league, our coaches all get along. You hear stories about other conferences, and there's not really anybody in our league now. There may have been some this year that may cause issues in June, but prior to this season, we've never had any issues. We all can sit in there and have communication as adults and do it professionally, and we've been very productive in meetings. So I don't really have anybody in the league that I have an issue with, but there's always certain people that you're more comfortable with. You just kind of go sit down and talk to them.
A lot of people, when they talk about Texas, it's obviously good when you beat them. It's good for you when you beat them, but also people say Texas needs to get back to an elite level for the good of the Big 12. How do you, as a guy that needs to beat them on a regular basis, how do you figure out that dichotomy?
Yeah, again, it's really hard for me to comment or say anything about other schools, but I think that the way that college football has changed over the last few years, and it's been evident in our league, that there's more teams that are competing for a conference championship in each league that what maybe fans and media would have thought 5 years ago. And so that's why I think it's important. And I've said this, you guys, that I've said this over the last 3 or 4 years, that when we made this move to get into this league and we changed with A&M and Missouri and so on and so forth, that the parity in this league would grow and it would increase. And I think that's true. It has. And it's good for all of our teams to have success. Like in bowl games, we need Big 12 teams to win bowl games, just from a national perspective. Because at some point, it could factor in next year at the end of the year when you're talking about 4 teams. Whether it does or not, I'm not sure. I think if you win your conference, I think you're going to be in good shape. But outside of that, maybe it could factor in. So.
The last 5 years, we've had 5 different teams win the Big 12.
Right.
Is that, for OSU, is that kind of parity good?
Oh, certainly. I think it's good for everybody in our league. Now, if you were to make that comment on what you guys and people in this area would say is a tradition-rich football school, they wouldn't be as happy about it. But I think you're seeing that across the country, that there's just a real fine line from winning 10 or 11 games and winning 7 or 8.
Let's see, you closed the season at Jerry's World with Missouri, and you opened the season at Jerry's World, Florida State. Are you just going to leave your footballs down there? Or?
I guess. It's 6 months before we can look to the next one, or 8 months, I guess, till we look to the next one, however many months it is. But our players and fans are excited about being in that environment. It's a beautiful place, and we get to go to the Eagles and the Cowboys game on whatever day that is. On that Sunday they play, and the players and coaches get to go there. So that'll be a fun trip for our guys. I've never been to an NFL game, so wrong time of the year.
In your life? Wow.
I can't ever remember.
As a kid?
There was no NFL teams around here. So I don't no. I think my kid went with my wife once. We lived in Maryland. I think they went to a Redskin game. I think that about wraps it up. So that'd be a neat for us. So anyway, all right, guys, thank you.
Try to get
Appreciate
a tour from the former Cowboys down there.
No, I'm sure they'll be busy. So I'm gonna try to get a good seat up there and watch them.